Hello everyone, myself Priscilla. This is a new initiative brought to you by Transform IS Academy. In this we'll be detailing the current affairs on a daily basis related to UPSC and KPSC exam. So let's get started for 6/7/2018, the Hindu analysis. So the first news item, allow gambling in sports but regulated, says the law panel. So here the Law Commission of India, which was being headed by the former Supreme Court Judge Mr. Justice B.S. Chauhan, has submitted a report to the government to regulate the gambling in sports. So here there are a few important key recommendations pertaining to the report. Number one, recommended the cashless gambling in sports as means to increase the revenue and deal a blow to the unlawful gambling. And here he is telling that whatever the money is being generated, it should be used for the public welfare activities, and these particular revenue of the gambling which should be taxable under the Income Tax Act and also the GST Act. And the transactions between the gambler and also the operator should be linked to the Aadhaar cards and also the PAN cards. And he also tells that there is also a recommendation classifying for a proper gambling and a small gambling. So proper gambling which would be for those rich people who play for a high stakes, while the small gambling for the low income groups. And this recommended to introduce a cap on the number of gambling transactions for each individuals. And there is also restrictions on amount should be prescribed while using the electronic money facilities like the credit cards, debit cards and the net banking. There's like a sort of a restrictions to what they have been prescribed whenever they will look on for an electronic money transactions. They have to have a limit to it and also to the restrictions through the way of credit cards, debit cards and the net banking. And the gambling website should not solicit the pornography. And the regulations need to protect the vulnerable groups, minors, the poor and those who depend on the social welfare measures for their livelihoods, subsidize and the Jan Dhan account holders from exploiting through the gambling structures. So gambling, which means that we need to also have side by side, we need to protect those kind of people who would be having a real exploitation through the gambling. And the commission also recommended the foreign exchange management and the FDI, that the foreign direct investment policies should be amended to encourage the investments in an online gambling industry. So this is like a few important recommendations to what Mr. Law Commission has been given to the government. So here they're just making it to increase revenue side by side and also have a more taxable part of it, so that they shouldn't get out of the ambit of the government or to the regulations. And also they are also imposing certain restrictions to what kind of a transaction and what is the limit they can get it for the transactions. And the dissent is that one of the members of the commission, Shivakumar, expressed a strong opposition on the following grounds. So one of the member was not happy about it, Mr. Shivakumar, and he has opposed the recommendation, and the grounds is that the report was not comprehensive. He tells that whatever the report is being given to the government by the Law Commission is not comprehensive, and the country as poor as India should not allow legalized gambling, because here is telling by legalizing the gambling so that the revenue can be increased and it can be used for the so and so purposes. But here the person, Mr. Shivakumar, has opposed it. So India is a poor country and you can't allow it to be a legalized gambling, and the commission exceeds its brief given it to by the Supreme Court in the year 2016. And the court's references had come in its judgment in the BCCI case involving the illegal betting in IPL cricket matches. So we are even seeing the BCCI, which is there from quite some time, and this is and he also argues that this is a light of the BCCI, so involving illegal betting in the IPL cricket matches. And he also criticized the commission for ignoring the socio-economic conditions of the country. So he tells that the commission has not taken the considerations of the socio-economic, they have completely ignored it, and which is the strong opposition which is coming from Mr. Shivakumar. So here you have the roll of the dice, you have certain details being posted out here, and have a look on to it. So the next news item, check lynchings, MHA tells the states. So basically again it's a mob lynching which we are seeing from some quite time. So mob lynching means that it's killing of someone by a mob for an alleged offense without following any principles of jurisprudence or a due process of law. A lynching is a majority way of telling a minority population that the law cannot protect it. And lynching serve the broad social purpose of maintaining superiority in the economic, social, cultural and also the political spheres. So this is like basic to what has been repeatedly been in the Hindu newspapers with respect to mob lynching. And the recent incidents which has been happened with connection to the mob lynching, that the 2 people were lynched in Tripura on June 28th and 2 in Assam the last month on suspicion of child lifting. And in Chennai, 2 men who have been employed with a construction company, even they had been engaged in metro rail work, were attacked in the last week for the same issue. And the latest incident is killing of 5 men in Maharashtra's district, Dhule districts. So again, back to back we have certain incidents with respect to the mob lynching. So safety measures is that the ministry has urged the states to keep the watch for the early detection of the rumors of the child lifting, so which has been very repeatedly happening, and they're just asking to have an early detection and also to take an appropriate measures for the same to counter them. And also the states and UTs have been asked to direct the district administrators to identify those vulnerable areas and also to create a kind of programs and awareness and also build a conference with respect to the mob lynching and also the child lifting part, and properly investigate the complaints of the child abduction or kidnapping to instill the confidence among the affected people. And recently the government had directed the WhatsApp to immediately take steps to prevent the spread of irresponsible and explosive measures. So these are the important safety measures to what they have taken. And here you have the crimes which had been taken place and from when to when the key important incidents. So that's about it. And the next one, create leprosy awareness, says the Supreme Court. So here leprosy, which is a very slowly developing progressive disease that damages the skins and also the nervous system. So leprosy is caused by an infection which is by the mycobacterium, and this is the early symptom. It has an early symptom which begins in the cooler areas of the body and includes a loss of sensation. They would be losing the sensation over the time, and the signs of leprosy are painless ulcers, skin lesions of hypopigmented macules. Then we have the eye damage with respect to dryness, reduced blinking, and also later there is a large ulcerations, loss of digits, skin nodules, and the face disfigurement may also develop with respect to the leprosy. So these are the major signs respected to it. And recently the Supreme Court had given the directions to the government to eradicate the leprosy. So the Chief Justice says that it is a duty of the state to erase the stigma against the leprosy. So there is a widespread stigma which is there in the society, and that's what the Chief Justice has asked the state to take out the stigma, and the government need to constitute a separate wing to create a public awareness that leprosy is curable and not contagious, because again the stigma is related to it. People think that it is very contagious and it's not curable, but here they wanted to create a public awareness where leprosy is curable and also it's not contagious. And the court ordered All India Radio, very important, All India Radio and Doordarshan to air the programs nationally as well as regionally in the states. An afflicted person could not be exposed to the stigma which denuded them to the basic human dignity. So that the human dignity is also being questioned out here, and previously the court had asked the center and the state to remove the references to leprosy disability from the statute book because the written laws amounted to a statutory stigma. The more it is there in the law, the more the stigma keeps prevailing in the country, and that is what the court has directed the center and the state. The court directed the government to spread the awareness campaign up even in the Gram Panchayat levels, so that eradicating the disease and also ending the discrimination against the sufferers let begin from the Gram Panchayats. The court referred to the 256 Law Commission report and said the recommendation on repealing discriminatory legal provisions had not been acted upon by the center and the states. So this is with respect to the leprosy part. You can just have a reading to it. The next one, this aborted mission is a success. So we are talking about the pad abort. So this is basically the ISRO which has taken the steps towards sending the Indians to the space by conducting the first pad abort test. And this test was conducted at Satish Dhawan, the space center, that is Sriharikota, and we call it as PAT, that's pad abort test, demonstrated a safe recovery of the crew module in case of exigency at the launch pad. And this is a major technology demonstrator and for the first in the series of the test to qualify a larger crew escape system of the future. And so each of the 7 motors, it's a technical point, so each of the 7 motors that powered the crew module had a different role, and they worked in the sequence at low altitude and high altitude and for pitching for a module away. And moreover, the test proves the agency can bail out the future astronauts with their capsule in case of an early danger to them at the launch pad. So the time they get to know there is a danger with respect to the astronauts, they can take a help of this pad and they can get rescued themselves. And US, Russia and China have already sent the human missions as a part of its research and the development activities. So we have 3 countries which is ahead, that is US, Russia and China. So this is a basic information about the pad abort test. And the next one, give legal backing to MSP, says the panel. So again, this is the same issue which has been there. It's a minimum support price. Recently the center approved the MSP for kharif crops, and the government considers A2 plus FL as a production cost, and A2 FL cost includes the family labor but not the land cost. So however, some experts want comprehensive cost. So even we discussed the last video, comprehensive cost is to be considered for MSP because C2 includes the land cost, and MSP based on C2 cost will be higher than the proposed figure. So there are some experts want as C2, that's comprehensive cost, but this would actually be more than the proposed figure. And here we have the basics to what we have dealt earlierly. So it's about the money matters. So what is A2 plus FL, what is C2, those stuffs. And here we have the Commission for Agriculture Cost and the Price, which is a statutory panel under the Ministry of Agriculture. It makes a recommendation for MSP for 23 kharifs and rabi crops. So however, its suggestions are not binding on the government. As I already even told you a couple of videos that UPSC has come up with a strange questions to asking the important commissions and also the ministries it is working under. So here the Commission for Agriculture Cost and Prices, which is a statutory panel which is under the Ministry of Agriculture, and the main work of them is for the recommendations of the MSPs for 23 kharif and the rabi crops. So here the panel has also recommended the centre to bring out a legislation which provides a legal backup to farmers to sell the produce at those particular prices. And there is a report which was titled Price Policy for Kharif Crops for Marketing the Season 2018-19, and the CACP highlighted that the procurement mechanism is broken for most crops and for most farmers. So this is about the report. And the farmers of the remote areas do not have a sufficient access to APMCs, and they sold their product at a local hut where their produce is being sold below the MSP. So again, these are structural fault to what is happening. And here the strong procurement operations need to be expanded to neglected regions, especially eastern and the northeastern regions. So there's again strong procurement area to those areas which has been actually neglected, and those are the eastern and the northeastern regions. So this is about the basic informations again. The next one, cryptocurrency trade braces for RBI ban. So we are again talking about the cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is a digital asset which would be signed to work as a medium of exchange that uses a strong cryptography to secure the financial transactions. Cryptocurrency is a kind of a digital currency. It's a virtual currency, or we call it as an alternative currency. And cryptocurrencies are used for decentralized control as opposed to the centralized electronic money and also the central banking system. Recently, the Supreme Court has refused to say the RBI's directive to the bank instructing them to stop all businesses with dealing in cryptocurrencies. So the APEC Bank's decision in a big blow to not only the cryptocurrency trading platform but also to the individuals holding the cryptocurrencies. So this is with respect to the RBI's directions towards the cryptocurrencies and taking the Supreme Court's refusal for the same. The next one, allies interrupted. So here it is with respect to drift in India and US relations in the recent past. So from quite some time again we are seeing India and US, which has been repeatedly there in the news. Let's see what is the new developments. So here we have the policy decisions of Mr. President Donald Trump to walk out for the multilateral nuclear deal with Iran and asking India to revive its relationship with Iran. And we also know that US Congress CAATSA law sanctioning Iran and Russia have set up an inevitable conflict limiting India's option on energy security and the defense procurement. and the US tough policy on trade tariffs applied to ally and adversely alike, including India, and more troubled areas in their relationship is diminishing the political will to address these issues. For example, repeatedly we have in postponement of 2+2 dialogue by the US. So the reaction is that the government has taken a policy away from the pro-US tilt at Shangri-La dialogue. The PM Modi invoked the long-lapsed phase strategic autonomy, which sets the rest on any doubt that there is a reset in India's foreign policy. And the government had reached out to Chinese and Russian presidents in an informal summit and invited the Iranian president to Delhi. And India promised to raise the oil imports from Iran this year, and the commitments to greater engagement with Chabahar port projects and the oil fields in Iran, and negotiating a $5.5 billion deal with Russia for that is S-400 Triumph missile systems, and India's engagement with these countries will trigger US sanctions unless the two countries reach a compromise. So again, these are like nothing to do in detail, just that to know what it is. And what is that we have to look forward is that it is imperative that the postponement of 2+2 dialogue between the two nations and quickly rescheduled, and India must now decide how best to deal with the US sanctions. So what has to be done with respect to the US sanctions. So this is for the 6/7/2018 current affairs. Thank you.